The letter lay on my kitchen counter like a silent bomb. A plain white envelope with no return address, just my name scrawled in precise, sharp strokes that reminded me of a doctor's prescription, impersonal and clinical. I'd found it under the door an hour ago, and since then I'd done everything to avoid opening it. I reorganized my protein powders, wiped down every surface twice, even alphabetized my spice rack. Anything to keep my hands from tearing open the truth. My name is Adelaide. Up until this moment, I thought I had everything figured out. A successful fitness studio, a loving fiancé, a wedding just around the corner. Life was on track. But the envelope, something about it felt wrong. The knot in my stomach tightened as I picked it up. The paper inside was thick and expensive, the kind Margaret, my future mother-in-law, would use for her passive-aggressive thank you notes. But this wasn't from Margaret. The handwriting was too controlled, too deliberate, intentionally cold. My phone buzzed, and Ryan's face flashed on the screen. "Hey, babe. Mom wants to know if we're still on for Sunday brunch," he asked. "Sure," I answered, eyes still fixed on the envelope. "Hey, did you send me something today?" "What do you mean?" "A letter. Someone slipped it under the door." There was a long pause. Then, in his usual easygoing voice, "No. Why would I send you a letter when we live together?" My fingers shook as I finally ripped open the envelope. Inside, the same heavy paper, folded neatly with typed text on the inside. "Addie, you still there? I'll call you back." His voice echoed in my head, but I hung up before he could protest, focusing entirely on the words in front of me. "Dear Adelaide Thompson, I believe you deserve to know the truth about your fiancé. Ryan has been seeing someone else for the past 3 months. They meet every Thursday at 2 p.m. at the Riverside Hotel, room 412. The letter went on with alarming detail, specific dates, times, even descriptions of what Ryan wore. My heart stopped. I felt my legs give way beneath me, and I collapsed onto the kitchen stool, the one Ryan had insisted we buy because it matched the granite countertops. The phone buzzed again. Ryan. I ignored it, my eyes glued to the letter. It continued. "If you don't believe me, check his credit card statements. Look for charges from the hotel's restaurant, the River's Edge. You deserve better than lies." No signature, no name. I opened our shared banking app with shaking hands. Ryan and I had merged accounts 6 months ago. One more step toward our shared future. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the transactions. And there it was, unmistakable. The River's Edge, multiple Thursday charges, always at exactly the same time. The truth hit like a punch to the gut, and I knew. I couldn't unsee it. "No," I whispered to our empty apartment. "No, no, no." The front door opened, and Ryan's keys clattered in the dish by the entrance. "Addie, why aren't you answering your phone? I was worried." He stopped when he saw me, his face shifting from concern to confusion. "What's wrong?" I held up the letter. "Want to explain this?" He crossed the room, reaching for the paper. I pulled it back. "Tell me first. Is it true?" "Is what true, Addie?" "You're scaring me." "The Riverside Hotel, room 412. Thursdays at 2 p.m. Ring any bells?" The color drained from his face. Not denial, not confusion, just guilt written across every feature I thought I knew by heart. "It's not... I can Lane." I stood up so quickly the stool crashed behind me. "Don't. Just don't. Please let me... Who is she?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it made me want to scream. "It's complicated." I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't seem like it could have come from my throat. "Complicated? That's what you're going with?" "Mom was right," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "This isn't going to work." Those words hit harder than any confession could have. "Your mother? What does Margaret have to do with this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. In that moment, I realized this went deeper than just an affair. Something bigger was at play, something that had Margaret's fingerprints all over it. I grabbed my keys and phone, leaving the letter on the counter between us like a declaration of war. "Where are you going?" he called after me. "To find out the truth," I said, not looking back. All of it. Margaret's pristine dining room felt like a courtroom, and I was on trial. The china clinked too loudly against the plates as we passed dishes around the Sunday brunch table. 3 days had passed since the letter, and Ryan still hadn't given me a real explanation about the hotel. "Adelaide, dear," Margaret's voice cut through the silence. "I heard your little fitness studio is struggling with the new chain gym opening nearby." I set down my fork. "Actually, we've had record sign-ups this quarter." "Oh?" She raised an eyebrow, cutting her quiche into precise triangles. "How surprising. I always thought people preferred more established businesses." Caleb cleared his throat. "Mom, Addie's studio has amazing reviews. Half my band members train there." "Yes, well, musicians aren't exactly known for their discerning taste, are they?" Margaret smiled, all teeth. "No offense, darling." Ryan stayed silent, pushing food around his plate. The engagement ring on my finger felt heavier with each passing minute. "Speaking of taste," Margaret continued, "I ran into Claire Davidson at the country club yesterday. You remember her, Ryan? She's doing remarkable things with her interior design firm, very sophisticated clientele." I watched Ryan's shoulders tense. "Mom, please." "What?" "I'm simply making conversation. Claire asked about you, actually. She mentioned running into you recently." My hand froze halfway to my water glass. "Claire Davidson?" The name hit me like a slap, and I felt my blood run cold. Thursday afternoons, room 412, isn't it? The thought circled in my mind as I fought to keep my composure. The tension in the room thickened. "That's enough," Caleb said suddenly, standing up and gathering the plates in a hurry. "Sit down, Caleb," Margaret commanded, her tone sharp as a whip. She turned her piercing gaze on me, her eyes glittering with something between curiosity and satisfaction. "Adelaide, have you given any more thought to what we discussed about postponing the wedding? A long engagement can be so beneficial for really getting to know someone's true nature." I felt my chest tighten. "That's enough," I repeated, pushing back from the table with a force that surprised even me. "Ryan, a word." Without waiting for his response, I stalked toward Margaret's pristine kitchen. His footsteps followed me, slow, hesitant, guilty. "Claire Davidson," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "That's who you've been meeting. Addie, it's not— if you say it's not what you think, one more time, I swear." I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my patience wearing thinner by the second. "She's helping with a project," he interrupted, his voice defensive. "A surprise for the wedding." I laughed, sharp, brittle, full of disbelief. It came out harsher than I intended. "Right, in a hotel room on Thursday afternoons." Caleb appeared in the doorway, his brow furrowed in concern. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, his voice uncertain. "Mom's working herself up to one of her speeches about family values." "Stay out of this, Caleb," Ryan snapped, clearly on edge. I glared at him, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. Let him stay. Someone in this family should witness what honesty looks like." I turned back to Ryan, locking eyes with him. "Claire Davidson, the same Claire your mother tried to set you up with 3 years ago. The one she called the perfect addition to the Mitchell family." Ryan looked uncomfortable, his face flushed with a mix of anger and guilt. "You're twisting everything," he muttered. "Mom has nothing to do with—" "Oh, please." I yanked off my engagement ring, the motion deliberate, and placed it on the counter with a loud clink. "Your mother has everything to do with everything. She probably picked out the hotel herself." The rain hammered against the marble counter behind us, a violent contrast to the cold silence that followed. I heard Margaret's heels click sharply on the hardwood floor as she approached. "Is everything all right?" "I heard raised voices," she asked, her tone cool, as though nothing was amiss. "Perfectly fine," I said, turning to face her with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "We were just discussing your interior design consultation services." Margaret's face remained smooth, implacable, but something flickered in her eyes. A brief flash of recognition, or perhaps guilt. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean," she said, though the tightness around her mouth betrayed her. I crossed my arms, feeling the weight of the moment, of everything crashing down. There was no more pretending, no more lies. "Room 412. Ring any bells? Or should I ask Claire?" "Adelaide." Ryan grabbed my arm. "Stop this." I jerked away from him. "Your mother's been orchestrating this whole thing, hasn't she? The meetings, the letter." "What letter?" Caleb asked. Margaret's composure cracked, just slightly. "Ryan, perhaps it's time Adelaide went home. She's clearly upset." "I'm leaving," I announced. "But first let me be clear. Whatever game you're playing, Margaret, I'm going to figure it out, and when I do, you'll wish you'd never started this." "Is that a threat?" Margaret's voice turned ice cold. "No," I smiled, channeling her earlier sweetness. "Just a promise between family members. Isn't that what you always wanted?" I walked out, leaving the ring behind. As I reached my car, Caleb caught up with me. "Addie, wait. What letter were you talking about?" I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. "Why don't you ask your mother? I'm sure she has a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything." "You know she's not going to stop, right?" "Neither am I," I replied, starting my car. "Neither am I." Sam's laptop screen glowed in the darkness of my living room, illuminating strings of text messages I shouldn't have been reading, but desperate times called for desperate measures, and my best friend's tech skills had finally cracked Margaret's password-protected cloud storage. "Jesus," Sam whispered, scrolling through the messages. "Your mother-in-law-to-be is something else." The timestamps went back months. "Margaret to an unknown number. Claire's perfect for this. She still carries a torch for Ryan, and she knows how to be discreet." My fingers dug into the couch cushions. Another message. "Adelaide's too common for our family. Ryan needs someone who understands our world. Once he sees what he's missing, keep going," I said, even as my stomach churned. Sam clicked through more messages. "Here's something from last week. The letter should arrive today. Once she finds out about the hotel meetings, everything will fall into place." The room spun. I'd suspected Margaret's involvement, but seeing it laid out so coldly made me physically ill. "There's more," Sam said. "Something about Margaret's sister, Elizabeth." My phone buzzed. Caleb calling. I ignored it. "Wait," Sam straightened. "Holy... Look at this email draft." The screen showed an unsent message to Elizabeth. "You destroyed my marriage with your lies 25 years ago. Now you're trying to poison Ryan against me through that girl. I won't let another gold digger tear apart my family." "I need to confront her," I said, standing. "Addie, it's midnight." Perfect timing. I grabbed my keys. "The truth comes out in the dark, right?" Sam caught my arm. "At least let me drive. You're shaking." 20 minutes later, we pulled up to Margaret's Victorian mansion. Lights blazed from the first-floor windows. She was still awake. "Want me to come with?" Sam asked. "No, this needs to be between us." Margaret opened the door before I could knock, wearing a silk robe like she'd been expecting company. Adelaide, what an unexpected surprise. "Cut the act." I pushed past her into the foyer. "I know about the letter, the hotel meetings, Claire, all of it." She closed the door with deliberate slowness. "I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Should we call your sister, Elizabeth, and ask her opinion?" Margaret's composure cracked. Fear flashed across her face before being replaced by cold fury. "You've been going through my private correspondence." Like you went through my life, orchestrating meetings between Ryan and Claire, trying to destroy my relationship. I was protecting my son. From what? Love? Happiness? From making the same mistake his father made? Her voice echoed off the high ceilings. Marrying beneath him, letting some woman destroy everything we built. Mom! We both turned. Ryan stood in the doorway to the study, papers scattered at his feet. Behind him, Caleb looked like he might be sick. How long have you been there? Margaret's voice trembled. Long enough, Ryan said. The letter, the hotel meetings, that was all you? I did it for you. Margaret stepped toward him. Claire comes from our world. She understands. Stop! Ryan's face had gone ash white. Just stop. I watched them, mother and son, standing in the wreckage of their carefully constructed lies. Part of me wanted to savor Margaret's exposure, but another part recognized something broken in her eyes, something that mirrored my own pain. Your sister, I said quietly. Elizabeth. What did she really do? Margaret's shoulders sagged. She told my husband the truth, that I came from nothing, that my family's wealth and social standing, it was all fabricated. He left me for someone from his own circle, she laughed bitterly. Someone more suitable. So you decided to do the same thing to me? Make history repeat itself? I decided to protect my son from what I went through by becoming exactly what destroyed you. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Congratulations, Margaret. You've become the very thing you hated. I turned to leave, but Ryan's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Addie, wait, please. No, I said firmly, pulling away from him. Your mother didn't force you to meet Claire. She didn't make you lie to me. That was all you. The words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. The truth was laid bare between us, fragile and dangerous, like shattered glass, beautiful but irreparable. The box of Ryan's belongings sat by our front door, a painful reminder of what once was. 3 years of shared moments reduced to photo frames, old t-shirts, and broken dreams. He stood in the middle of our living room, keys dangling from his fingers, while I methodically erased every trace of him from our life together. I need time, he said, his voice tight, watching me delete his profile from our Netflix account. Time? I didn't even look up from the screen. Time to figure out whether you prefer your mother's choice of wife over me? That's not fair, he muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. Neither is meeting Claire behind my back, I shot back, not letting up. He sighed, the sound one I knew all too well, the same frustrated exhale he gave whenever the conversation got too real. Nothing happened with Claire, he added, his words defensive, weak. Because you chose not to, I countered, or because you hadn't gotten around to it yet. Silence followed, and it was more telling than anything he could say. My phone buzzed again. Caleb, the 3rd time today. I declined the call without hesitation. Addie, Ryan said, his voice softer now as he stepped closer. Mom was wrong about everything, but she was right about one thing. We rushed into this engagement. I turned to face him then, finally meeting his eyes, seeing the uncertainty and guilt in them. Rushed? We've been together for 3 years, Ryan. And in those 3 years, have you ever truly tried to understand my family's expectations? Have you made the effort to get to know me? A hollow laugh escaped my lips, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. Oh, you mean your mother's expectations? The same mother who fabricated her entire background to trap your father? Ryan's face tightened, his jaw clenching. Don't talk about her like that, he warned, his voice low and dangerous. Why not? I spat, feeling the weight of everything we'd built crashing down on me. It's the truth, Ryan. Or does that make you uncomfortable? Knowing you're just like her, living a lie? His face paled, and I saw it. The flash of recognition, the understanding that maybe, just maybe, I was right. I never lied about loving you, he muttered, the words coming out raw and unsteady. I looked at him, my heart heavy with all the broken promises and unspoken truths. "No, Ryan," I said softly, my voice cracking with emotion. "You lied about everything else. No, you just lied about everything else." I pulled off the necklace he'd given me for our second anniversary. "Here, give it to Claire. I'm sure she'll appreciate the family heirloom more than this common girl." "Stop it." He grabbed my wrist, gentle but firm. "This isn't you. You're better than petty jabs." I jerked away. Maybe I'm tired of being better. Maybe I'm tired of being the bigger person while your mother schemes and you just let it happen. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from Caleb. "Need to talk, it's about Mom and Claire, important." "Take your things," I said, turning away from Ryan. "I'll have the rest shipped to your mother's house." "I'm not moving in with Mom." "No? Then where are you going?" He hesitated. "Claire offered her guest room." The words hit like a physical blow. "Get out, Addie. Get out." The vase of flowers he'd brought last week, a guilty peace offering, shattered against the wall inches from his head. We both stood frozen, watching water drip down the wallpaper. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered. Funny how that keeps happening anyway. After he left, I sank to the floor among the scattered roses and broken glass. My phone buzzed again. "Caleb, what?" I answered, too tired for politeness. "Claire's pregnant." The world tilted sideways. "What?" 3 months along. Mom's been helping her hide it while they figured out how to handle it. His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, Addie, I just found out. 3 months, the same time the hotel meeting started. Does Ryan know?" "Mom's telling him tonight. I couldn't let you be blindsided again." I ended the call without responding. 3 months while I'd been planning our wedding, picking out color schemes. Ryan had been... My mother answered on the first ring. "Adelaide, can I come stay with you for a while?" "Of course, sweetheart, what's wrong?" "Everything." I looked around our apartment, my apartment now, at all the carefully constructed pieces of a future that never existed. But I think that's about to change. I packed a bag, leaving the engagement ring on the counter next to the broken vase. Let Ryan clean up this mess. I was done being the one who always picked up the pieces. As I drove away, another text came through from Caleb. "Whatever you're planning, I want to help. Mom and Ryan need to face what they've done." I smiled for the first time in days. Maybe it was time to stop being the bigger person. Maybe it was time to show the Mitchells exactly what this common girl could do. The pregnancy test lay face down on my mother's bathroom counter, a 5-minute timer ticking away on my phone. 2 weeks since I'd left Ryan, since Claire's pregnancy bombshell, and now this. The universe's cruel joke. Mom knocked softly. "Adelaide, do you want me to come in?" "Not yet." My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. The timer beeped. I flipped the test over, staring at the 2 pink lines that would change everything again. When I opened the door, Mom took one look at my face and pulled me into her arms. No questions, no platitudes, just the familiar scent of her perfume and the steady beat of her heart against my cheek. "What am I going to do?" I whispered. "Whatever you decide, you won't do it alone." My phone buzzed. Caleb. He'd been feeding me information about Ryan and Claire's situation, each update twisting the knife deeper. I ignored the call. "I can't tell him," I said. "Not after everything." Mom guided me to the kitchen, putting on the kettle, her solution to every crisis. "Because you're afraid of what he'll do or what Margaret will do?" "Both." "Neither." I pressed my hands against my temples. "Claire's already giving them the perfect Mitchell heir. What's Margaret going to do when she finds out there's another baby? One from the wrong side of the tracks." "This isn't about Margaret." "Everything is about Margaret." The words exploded out of me. "She orchestrated all of this. The letter, Claire, the hotel meetings, and now you're carrying her grandchild. The kettle whistled, its scream matching the chaos in my head. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Sam. "Ryan's at your apartment looking for you." "I need to go," I stood abruptly. "I left something important at the apartment." Mom caught my arm. "Adelaide, don't do anything rash. I'm just getting some papers." "No, you're going to confront him. I know that look." I pulled away. He deserves to know what he's chosen, what he's losing. The drive to my apartment felt like moving through fog. Ryan's car sat in the parking lot next to a familiar Mercedes. Margaret's, of course. She was here. I found them in my living room, Margaret directing movers while Ryan packed boxes. "Well, this is cozy," I said from the doorway. They both spun around. Ryan looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Margaret, naturally, was immaculate. "Adelaide." She stepped forward, all concern and false warmth. "We tried calling." "Save it." I moved past her to my desk, pulling out the folder I'd come for. "Just get your things and go." "Addie, please." Ryan's voice cracked, desperate. "Can we talk about what? Claire's pregnancy? Or how your mother manipulated everything?" Margaret's smile faltered, her perfect composure slipping for just a moment. "That's hardly fair," she countered, her tone icy. "Fair?" I laughed, the sound brittle, like glass about to shatter. "Fair? Like it was fair to send that letter? To orchestrate meetings between Ryan and Claire? I did what was necessary for my family." I was barely holding it together now, every word laced with the rage I'd kept bottled up for so long. "Your family?" Margaret's eyes narrowed as she caught my movement, my hand instinctively reaching for my stomach before I pulled it back. "You destroyed your family? And for what? So Claire could give you a socially acceptable grandchild?" Ryan went white, his confusion and fear evident in the way his shoulders stiffened. "What are you talking about?" I felt the words bubble up in my throat, sharp and raw. "I'm pregnant too, Ryan. Your mother's getting 2 grandchildren, not just one." But as I looked at them, Ryan, frozen and pale, and Margaret with her smug, calculating smile, I swallowed the words back down. The truth hung between us like a noose, but I couldn't speak it. Not now. Not like this. "Nothing," I said finally, my voice breaking. "It doesn't matter anymore." I grabbed my folder, ready to leave the wreckage behind, but Margaret's voice cut through the air, sharp as a blade. "I know you're pregnant, Adelaide." The world tilted. My feet faltered for a moment as I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. "What?" She smiled, that cold, practiced smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "I have friends at every medical office in town. Did you really think you could keep it secret?" Ryan staggered back as though I'd struck him, his face twisted with disbelief. "You are... we are..." "Congratulations," Margaret said smoothly, her voice like silk. "Now we can discuss how to handle this situation properly for everyone's sake." The words hit me like a slap. I saw her then fully, the puppet master pulling the strings, the woman who manipulated everything, from the beginning to the bitter end. This wasn't just about control. It wasn't just about appearances. This was about power. The power to shape destinies, to determine who gets what and who gets left behind. And in that moment, she played her last card. I held her gaze, my spine straightening, my voice cold and steady. "You're right, Margaret. Let's discuss how to handle this. All of it." The Mitchell family's private dining room felt more like a courtroom than a gathering space, with Margaret presiding over us like a judge, her steely eyes piercing each of us in turn. Ryan sat next to her, a shell of the man I thought I knew. Claire was at her left, her face a mask of tension, while Caleb lingered near the window, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. I stood in the center of the room, my hands pressed flat against the polished mahogany table to keep them from shaking. Margaret smiled, that smile that always felt more like a warning than a greeting. "Well," she said, her voice sweet but razor-sharp, "shall we discuss the arrangements?" "Arrangements?" My voice stayed steady, surprising even me. "For both children, of course. The Mitchell heirs should be raised together, don't you think? We have plenty of room here at the estate." Ryan's head snapped up. "Mother?" "It's the only sensible solution," Margaret continued. "Claire's already agreed to move in. Haven't you, dear?" Claire nodded, one hand protectively over her stomach. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "And what makes you think I'd agree to that?" I asked. Margaret's smile tightened. "Because you want what's best for your child. A proper upbringing, the right connections, the Mitchell name, like you had." The words sliced through the air. Or wait, that was all fabricated, wasn't it? "Adelaide," Ryan warned. "No, let's talk about it. About how Margaret invented her whole background to trap your father, about how she's doing the same thing now, orchestrating this whole situation." "That's enough," Margaret's mask cracked. "You want to talk about traps? What do you call getting pregnant just as Ryan was finally seeing sense?" "Mom!" ! Caleb stepped forward, but Margaret waved him off. "We all know what this is. A desperate attempt to hold on to a family you were never meant to be a part of." I laughed, the sound sharp and foreign. "You think I want to be part of this family after everything you've done?" "What I've done is protect my sons from making their father's mistake, by pushing Ryan into Claire's arms, by having her get pregnant first." The room went silent. Claire's face drained of color. "What did you say?" Ryan stood slowly. "Ask your mother about the fertility clinic appointments she arranged for Claire. Ask her about the timing, how convenient it was that Claire got pregnant just as you were starting to question your mother's influence." "That's ridiculous," Margaret snapped, but her eyes darted to Claire. "Is it?" I pulled out my phone, playing the voicemail I'd been saving. Claire's voice filled the room. "Margaret, the doctor confirmed it, 3 months just like you planned. Ryan won't be able to walk away now." The recording ended. Claire burst into tears. Ryan looked like he might be sick. "You planned this?" he whispered to his mother. "All of it?" Margaret's composure crumbled. "I did what was necessary. That girl would have ruined you, just like my father was ruined." Ryan's voice rose. "By marrying beneath him? By loving someone you didn't approve of? By being deceived?" Margaret stood, her chair scraping back. "And now you're doing the same thing. Adelaide's no different from me, lying, manipulating, using a baby to trap you." "The difference is," I said quietly, "I don't want your son, or your name, or anything else from this toxic family." "Then what do you want?" Margaret demanded. "For my child to never know what it feels like to be a pawn in someone else's game." I turned to Ryan. "I'm leaving town, starting fresh somewhere else. You can tell everyone whatever story makes you look best." "Addie, please." Ryan reached for me. I stepped back. "Your mother won't stop. She'll always see me, see our child, as a threat to her perfect world, and you'll always be caught between us, just like you are with Claire." "I'll fix this," he pleaded. "You can't, because you're just like her, so afraid of losing control that you'll destroy anything real to maintain the illusion." I walked out, leaving them with their perfectly arranged lives and carefully constructed lies. In the driveway, Caleb caught up with me. "What you said about leaving town, I meant it." He nodded. "Take me with you." I stared at him, seeing the same desperate need for escape in his eyes that I felt in my soul. Behind us, raised voices spilled from the house, the sound of a family imploding under the weight of its own deceptions. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." The envelope arrived 3 days after Caleb and I left town. No return address, just my name in that same precise handwriting as the first letter. Inside was a single photograph. Margaret, decades younger, standing beside another woman who could have been her twin. Mom's sister, Caleb said, looking over my shoulder. Elizabeth. I haven't seen her since I was a kid. We sat in my mother's vacation cottage, boxes still unpacked around us. The photo trembled in my hands. Why would she send this now? My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered on speaker. Hello, Adelaide. The voice was eerily similar to Margaret's, but softer. I believe it's time we met. An hour later, we sat across from Elizabeth Mitchell in a quiet cafe. She looked like Margaret's ghost, same aristocratic features, but worn by time and hardship instead of preserved by privilege. I sent the first letter, she said without preamble. About Ryan and Claire. Caleb's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. What? I've watched Margaret destroy lives for 30 years. When I heard about you, Adelaide, I knew she'd do it again. So you decided to destroy my life instead? The words tasted bitter. I decided to give you a choice, something Margaret never gave me. Elizabeth's fingers traced the photo's edge. She didn't just steal my fiancé, you know. She stole my entire life, my identity, used it to create her perfect society marriage. That's impossible, Caleb whispered. Is it? She shook her head. Ask yourself why there are no family photos before your parents' wedding. Why Margaret never talks about her childhood. She took everything. My background, my connections, even my name. Elizabeth with Margaret Mitchell became just Margaret Mitchell while I became no one. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach. Why tell us now? Because history is repeating itself, Caleb said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. Margaret orchestrating Claire's pregnancy, pushing Ryan to follow the right path. She's still trying to control the narrative, trying to create her perfect family story. His voice cracked as he added, but at what cost? I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Caleb's words cut through the air with a painful clarity I hadn't fully understood until now. Margaret had been manipulating everything, from the moment I met Ryan to this very point, where she was still pulling the strings, determining who could love who would be accepted, and who would be left in the shadows. The power she sought to wield had always been about control. Control over us, over her image, over our lives. That's what I wanted Adelaide to see before it was too late, Elizabeth added, her voice tinged with regret. Her eyes met mine, and I felt the weight of her years, the burden of stories left untold, secrets hidden for far too long. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my heart sinking as it buzzed in my hand. Ryan's name flashed across the screen. He's been trying to reach you, Caleb said softly, his gaze heavy. I know, I muttered, my thumb hovering over the screen. I wasn't ready to talk to him, not yet. The phone buzzed again, this time a text from Sam. Ryan's here at the studio looking for you. Says it's about Margaret. I sighed, the air in my lungs suddenly too thick to breathe. I stood up, the decision already made. I have to go back, I said, looking at Caleb, who opened his mouth to protest but fell silent. Addie, no. Caleb started, but I cut him off. Not to stay, to finish this, for all of us. I turned to Elizabeth. Will you help? Her smile, when it came, was real, soft and genuine, a stark contrast to the cold, calculated grin Margaret always wore. I've waited 30 years to tell my story, she said. The sincerity in her voice was a balm, and it filled the empty spaces between us, giving me a sense of clarity I didn't even know I needed. The drive back to the studio felt like we were gliding through a fog, reality slipping away. When we arrived, we found Ryan standing in the middle of the studio, his face pale and drawn like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were tired, his body tense as if waiting for something terrible to happen. Mom's in the hospital, he said, his voice hollow. She tried to... Is she okay? Caleb interrupted, his concern immediate despite everything. Physically, yes, Ryan replied, looking like he was trying to keep himself together. But she keeps asking for you, Addie. And Elizabeth. Elizabeth stepped forward then, a quiet authority in her movements. Ryan's eyes went wide and he staggered back. Hello, nephew, Elizabeth said softly, her voice a gentle invitation to understand the unspoken history between them. Ryan looked confused, lost. I don't understand. You will, I said, stepping around him to unlock the studio door. Call Margaret's doctor. Tell her to expect visitors. It's time for a family reunion. Ryan reached out, grabbing my arm, his desperation palpable. Adelaide, I left Claire after everything Mom did. I yanked my arm free, my eyes hardening as I looked at him. You think that matters now, Ryan? You think any of this is about you anymore? I took a deep breath, my heart thudding in my chest. You've made your choices. You'll have to live with them. But this is bigger than us. It always was. And with that, I pushed forward, leaving him behind, following the path that had been laid out for me all along. The path of truth. The path where we would finally stop running, stop hiding. It was time to face the legacy Margaret had created, and time for me to decide if I wanted to play her game or change the rules completely. This isn't about us anymore. I pulled away gently. It's about breaking a cycle, for all our children. In the fading light, I watched Ryan make the call, saw Caleb embrace his aunt, felt my baby move for the first time, small moments of truth breaking through decades of lies. Ready? Elizabeth asked. I nodded, thinking of Margaret in her hospital bed, finally forced to face the ghosts of her past. Ready. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about forcing them to see their own reflection, unfiltered by the lies they've built their life upon. Margaret's hospital room felt smaller than it should have, crowded with the weight of decades of lies. She lay propped against white pillows, her perfect facade cracked by exhaustion and something that looked almost like fear. Elizabeth? The name escaped her lips like a ghost. Hello, Margaret, or should I say little sister? I stayed by the door while Elizabeth approached, the truth stretched between them like a taut rope. Ryan and Caleb flanked their mother, watching this stranger who wore her face. You had no right, Margaret whispered. To what? My own life? The one you stole? I made something of it, something better than you ever could. Elizabeth pulled out the old photograph. Better? You built an empire on lies, Margaret, and now it's crumbling, just like mine did 30 years ago. Margaret's hands trembled. I protected my family. No. I stepped forward. You controlled them. There's a difference. Adelaide. Ryan reached for me, but I shook my head. I'm not here for reconciliation. I'm here so your children can understand why their mother would rather destroy their happiness than lose her grip on the narrative. They don't need to know, Margaret started. We already do, Caleb interrupted. About Claire, about Elizabeth, about everything. It's over, Mom. Margaret's composure shattered. I did it for you, both of you. I gave you the life I never had. You gave us lies. Ryan's voice cracked. And now there are 2 children who pay the price unless we break the cycle, I said, touching my stomach. Right here, right now. Elizabeth placed the photograph on Margaret's bed. Tell them the truth, Margaret. All of it, or I will. The silence stretched, filled with the beeping of hospital monitors and the weight of unspoken confessions. Finally, Margaret spoke, her voice small. I was nobody. Elizabeth was everything, beautiful, sophisticated, engaged to the perfect man. I needed to be her. To be better than you, Elizabeth finished. The truth spilled out, how Margaret had stolen her sister's identity while Elizabeth was traveling abroad, how she'd stepped into her life so seamlessly that even their parents couldn't prove otherwise, how she'd married Elizabeth's fiancé, built her perfect world on a foundation of carefully constructed lies. And now? I asked when she finished. What happens to your perfect world? Margaret looked at her sons, then at me. You'll tell everyone. No, Elizabeth said. You will. Because if you don't, if you try to maintain this facade, you'll lose them anyway. Look what it's already cost you. Ryan moved to the window, his shoulders tight. Claire lost the baby, the stress. My heart clenched, not for the loss of Margaret's planned perfection, but for the innocent life caught in her web of manipulation. I'm leaving town, I announced, not running away, but moving forward. My child deserves a fresh start away from all this. Our child, Ryan said quietly. No, my child, who will know the truth about everything, their history, their family, their worth, without it being filtered through someone else's expectations. Caleb stepped forward. I'm still coming with you. You gave us lies, Ryan's voice cracked, and now there are 2 children who pay the price unless we break the cycle. I said, touching my stomach. Right here, right now. Elizabeth placed the photograph on Margaret's bed. Tell them the truth, Margaret, all of it, or I will. The silence stretched, filled with the beeping of hospital monitors and the weight of unspoken confessions. Finally, Margaret spoke, her voice small. I was nobody. Elizabeth was everything beautiful, sophisticated, engaged to the perfect man. I needed to be her. To be better than you? Elizabeth finished. The truth spilled out, how Margaret had stolen her sister's identity while Elizabeth was traveling abroad, how she'd stepped into her life so seamlessly that even their parents couldn't prove otherwise, how she'd married Elizabeth's fiancé, built her perfect world on a foundation of carefully constructed lies. And now? I asked, the words coming out in a steady but quiet demand. What happens to your perfect world? Margaret's eyes flicked between her 2 sons before settling on me, her gaze cold and calculating as always. You'll tell everyone, she said, her voice hard as stone. Elizabeth stepped in then, her voice cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. Number you will. Because if you don't, if you try to maintain this facade, you'll lose them anyway. Look what it's already cost you. Ryan, silent for the longest time, finally moved toward the window, his back turned to us. Claire lost the baby, he murmured, his voice strained. The stress. It was too much for her. My heart clenched, but not for the loss of Margaret's carefully crafted version of perfection. It was for the innocent child, caught in the chaos of her manipulations, forced to suffer the consequences of a plan that had never accounted for human frailty. I'm leaving town, I said suddenly, my words firm, final. Not running away, but moving forward. My child deserves a fresh start, away from all this. Ryan, his voice barely above a whisper, added, Our child. I shook my head slowly, my gaze unwavering. Number my child. Who will know the truth, everything, their history, their family, their worth, not filtered through someone else's expectations. Caleb, always the steadfast support, stepped forward. I'm still coming with you. Margaret, at the head of it all, let out a small broken sound. It wasn't a sob, more like the sound of a mask cracking, of everything she had built beginning to crumble around her. Not to escape, Caleb told her softly, his voice steady, but to help build something real, something honest. I looked at Elizabeth then, meeting her eyes. She nodded slightly, her expression filled with both regret and resolve. We had given Margaret her moment of reckoning. Now it was time to leave her to face the consequences of her choices. There was no more holding her hand, no more pretending that her manipulation was anything other than what it was. As I turned to leave, my hand on the doorknob, I looked back one last time. The irony is, Margaret, I said, my voice carrying a sharp finality. If you had just been yourself, told the truth from the beginning, you might have had everything you wanted anyway. Real love, real family, real respect. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, as if the truth of my words had struck her. How can you be so sure? She whispered. I stood tall, a calm certainty settling over me as I said, "Because I'm choosing truth over perfection, and I've never felt stronger." With that, I turned and walked away. Elizabeth followed, her steps purposeful, and Caleb came up beside me, loading our bags into the car. We left Margaret behind, her face now a mask of defeat and shattered control, with her sister by her side. Two women separated by decades of lies, now facing the shared truth of who they really were. Ryan appeared in the hallway, following us out. "Addie, please." His voice cracked, desperation still clinging to him. I stopped and looked back at him, my gaze steady but resolute. "Goodbye, Ryan. Break the cycle your own way. I'll break mine." And with that, we walked out into the light of a new day. The morning sun cast everything in a different hue. Soft, golden, full of possibility. Caleb was already loading our things into the car, ready for the journey ahead, while I paused for a moment, looking back at the hospital one last time. I thought about the cycles of revenge and redemption, about the difference between running away and walking forward. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't in destroying someone else's perfect lie. It's in living your own perfect truth. And in that moment, as the sun bathed us in its warmth, I knew my truth would be enough.